joined the Cubs whilst the war was on. So I was Cub outings whilst the air raids were on. You just carried on with life. We had some mostly fire bombs in Tottenham, but we did have a landmine just the other side of the railway, which was a road or two away, which took the front door halfway up the stairs and blew all the windows out. But you got to live with it. It was fun. It was exciting for a boy. Used to go out collecting shrapnel every morning with Dad, from where the AK guns had been trying to shoot the enemy down. Never got a shell cap. That was the thing all boys wanted. Never got one. Dad was an optical engineer and was involved in making the bomb sights for dam busters, although he didn't know it at the time, but subsequently he's cracked it. That's what it was. He never served, but he never had any sleep either. It was street fire patrol, or he was warden patrol at work. So if he got 2 full nights sleep in any week, he was doing rather well. Mum worked, she was secretary, Pitman's, shorthand typist, and she worked for Liebus, which is a furniture company. And she went down to the floor one day and saw lots of tall boxes and commented they very basic wardrobes, and to be told, no love, they're coffins for when we invade Europe. Actually went in at 19, when I was 19 and a half, because I was doing an engineering apprenticeship and working in a drawing office, technical drawing, and I didn't want to do engineering. Dad was an engineer, so I ended up doing engineering. But the moment you gave up on your apprenticeship, the National Service grabbed you. So I didn't apply for deferment when I was 19 and a bit. And they grabbed me and I ended up at Catterick camp. At the time, there were no, Navy were not taking any national service. So it was RAF or Army. And initially, they wanted to put me in the RAF. And I said, no, I didn't want to go in the RAF. I got mates in the RAF and they never saw an aeroplane. So what was the point? They only did rifle drill and everything else. So I might as well be a soldier. And I attended an interview, which everybody did, and it was a little basic exam paper, 2 and 2, is it 5, 4, 6, you know. And when I said I wanted to go in the army, the captain taking the interview tore my exam paper up, binned it, called the sergeant in, having previously briefed me to return a blank paper with just my name on the top. So I went out, took the exam again, put my name on the top only, came in, he said, Turner, right, Army. And we took it from there. Because I'd opted to do it, I ended up in a cavalry regiment. And the cavalry are one above everybody else, you know. In the pecking order, there's the guards and the household cavalry, and there's the Royal Artillery, the gunners, and then there's the cavalry. And then there's the infantry regiments, and then there's the Corps, Royal Army Service Corps, Royal Army Pay Corps, Royal Army Medical Corps, Pioneer Corps, they're corpsmen, and it goes on down the line. I went in the Royal Armoured Corps. You were trained as Royal Armoured Corps. And when you'd done your first 6 weeks basic training, you were allotted a regiment. And our training regiment supplied men for 4 cavalry regiments. So you took the cap badge of one of those regiments. Did I see horses? Yes, once. The adjutant turned up on one in a pass-out parade. The stupid man, and the horse didn't behave and he wrecked the pass-out parade. That's the only horse I ever saw. No, it was Centurion tanks. Horrible, noisy, greasy things, which all the lads couldn't wait to get on and play with. And I thought, no, I don't want greasy, noisy, horrible tanks. So I was what I call myself a Burton's window soldier. I was best boots and gaiters and turned out immaculately day after day after day. But no, I wasn't really a tank man at all. Because I was staying on the training regiment, I could choose. And our squadron leader, a major, was a 10th Hussar. So, and there were 2 drill instructors at that time already on the square, and they were both 10th Hussars, and they were, one of them particularly was very, very good. He was a national serviceman, and he'd been an RSM as a cadet. And I thought, yeah, they're a winning team, I'll join them. So I became a 10th Hussar. First of all, you get paid to go. You get a travel warrant. So my fare from King's Cross to Richmond, Yorkshire, was paid for by the government. When I arrived there, it was a Thursday, and there was the train was full of national servicemen reporting for duty. Catterick camp at that time was 2 regiments of cavalry or Royal Armoured Corps and 6 regiments of Royal Signals. And the station, you were greeted by very, very smart lance corporals and corporals all shouting their heads off with lorries, and we were sorted out which regiment we were going to. Papers were inspected, and we were hoarded onto the transport and whisked away to where we were going to commence our training. As a 19-and-a-half-year-old, when I went in, I was a relatively old man compared with most of them. There's a lot of difference between an 18-year-old lad and a 19-and-a-half-year-old lad. 19-and-a-half, you got your head screwed on a bit better than the 18-year-old, and that served me very well indeed. A lot of the lads did struggle. They found, and I pursued it when I became a drill instructor, the instructors found out what they got in the squad. Had you got any cadets, any boys brigade, any scouts? And scouts were a bit slow to sort of come to the fore in an army situation. You had to sort of prize it out of them. But it was all training. It was all training. And as far as I was concerned, it was pretty much like the scouts, you know. I got homesick just the same, but not as bad as half of them. First of all, you had the first afternoon in camp where you were kitted out. Your feet didn't touch the ground. You went round the quartermaster's store and you were given 4 blankets, 2 pillows, 2 sheets, an under blanket, anything that was small, medium or large, and anything that was one size fits all, a kit bag, all your webbing. You were given everything, 2 pairs of boots, and they looked at you, and if you didn't know your boot size, hard luck, you got what they thought fitted you. And the last thing you got was a china plate, 2 china plates and a china mug, and this was plonked on top of everything else you were holding in your arms. And as you made your way back to the barrack room, there's many a piece of china didn't make it. So mine survived. I said, I could see this was going to happen. I said, put it in the kit bag, because I got a kit bag, so I slid it down the side of the kit bag. But if it didn't make it, you had to pick up all the blokes that dropped it, had to pick up all the bits of broken china, put it in their kit bag, drop it on their bed when they got there, and they were smartly doubled back to the stores to be issued with another one, and it was stopped from their first week's pay. That was a rude awakening as to what life was going to be like. It actually became a ritual. No one ever left the regiment and handed in their mug. In the wing where you were finally, before you went to your regiment, there was a big target painted on the end of the barrack room, and you shied your mug at the end of the barrack room. No one ever paid, and no one ever took china with them or handed it in. They always smashed it and paid for it. It was a ritual. I was interviewed and they wanted me to be offered me potential officer material and said, would I train as an officer? And I refused it. I said no, because I'd had friends who'd done national service and had taken a commission, and they found it very, very hard because making ends meet with mess fees, because it was very poor, the pay. So I said no. So I was earmarked as a potential NCO, a non-commissioned officer. We did 6 weeks basic training, and then we went to another squadron, and as I was earmarked for a potential tank commander, I was to be trained as a wireless operator to start with. We were halfway through that, and they were looking for volunteers for drill instructors. They were running a drill cadre. And what happened was that if a national serviceman showed any inkling to coach or teach, they snuffled you and kept you, because the regulars did not want to be in a training establishment. They referred to it as the bloody sausage machine. So what you had in a training regiment, all the corporals and lance corporals were all, or a great majority of them, were national service. It was only sergeants that were regulars. Even the lieutenants, second lieutenants, were national servicemen. And towards the end of my national service, I actually had an officer who I had trained as a raw recruit. And I, with a mate, went back onto the square to do the drill course. And with the help of the instructor who was doing our wireless operator, he coached us, and we took our exam with the intake that was ahead of us a fortnight early. And I believe, and subsequent to that, the Army took the attitude that if those two blighters can do it, everybody can, and they knocked the wireless course down by a couple of weeks. Anyway, we took the wireless course early, having swatted up in evenings, and we passed, and we went back on the square, and I did another 6 weeks drill, which is basically what the first 6 weeks was. And because we were taking and helping existing drill instructors and working with raw recruits, we had to have a tape. So I became an acting unpaid unwanted lance corporal. So that was the start of it. I became a qualified drill instructor as a lance corporal, and following the course I ended up with a squad of my own. I had a very experienced sergeant who pretty much left me to get on with things. Yes, I suppose I could be classed as one of those mean men. I never resorted to swearing. And I learned also later on, when I was attached to the guards, which is another story, the guards will clean you, but again, they never swear. They never swear. It's unbelievable. And if a drill instructor really knows his stuff, he doesn't need to swear. A drill instructor can make you feel 2 inches tall without swearing at you. I was based the whole time at Catterick camp. The only time I left it was when I went on a course with the Brigade of Guards and went to Purbright. And that came about because we had a commanding officer who had been commanding officer of the 3rd Dragoon Guards, and they'd served in Korea. And at that time, all the regiments were about 40, 50% national service. It was only their senior NCOs, but their troopers, their private soldiers, most of them were national servicemen. And he had a high regard for national servicemen, and he decided that he was going to have a national service sergeant. And my face fitted, but so I was made up to acting unpaid unwanted sergeant from full corporal, which I really was, and I was sent down to Purbright. And that, again, was an experience and a half. The barrack rooms down there were down the middle between the beds. It was scrubbed white, the boards, and bleached. And The beds were divided off with a painted white line, the width of a goalpost, and the actual bed spaces that the bed stood on were boot polished, black, and brushed till they shone. So you had a white line, a white path down the middle, and a white path between the beds which you stood on, and your locker stood behind that. But the actual bed stood on a bulled black boot polish square, and the whole thing was white lined. We had an ordinary fire at the end of the barrack room, and that was a coal bucket there. And God help you if you made the fire up and didn't take the blocks off the top, because the blocks of coal on the top were bulled like toe caps, shone like black glass. So you removed those, made the fire up, and put the pieces back on top. And then you had a locker, and everything was folded and displayed, and your best boots stood to attention on the foot of your bed. It wasn't so tiresome to me as it was to some of the old sweats that were on the course. They were ticking like meters over all this, but I just, you did it all with a laugh and thought, you know, it's crazy, but that's what it's got to be. It's got to be, you know. My national service crescendoed the whole time. And when I went into the sergeant's mess, it was a whole new world in the sergeant's mess. We had a mess night, and I, as the youngest sergeant in the mess, had to propose the toast to our commanding officer and his lady, who were the guests for the night. And I turned up early that evening to take my final instructions for the RSM, to be greeted by the RSM, where the bloody hell are your blues? And I said, I haven't got any blues, sir. I'm national service, you don't get them. So I ended up in the sergeant's mess that night, the only man in battle dress proposing the toast of the commanding officer and his lady. And next morning, I had a little bit of chitty from the RSM, and I went and drew blues. In the mess one night, there was dancing, Saturday night. And the sergeant's mess is a very sociable place. When you go into a sergeant's mess, you remove your headgear, whatever it may be, your cap, your berry, and you remove your belt. And they sit on the hall table, and everybody is equal standing when you're in the mess. Although you still refer to the RSM as sir, and he referred to me as laddie. One night, the dancing was going on, and the RSM came up to me and said, Sergeant Haywood's wife wants to dance. Sergeant Haywood doesn't dance. You dance, so go and ask her for a dance, laddie. So I was instructed by the RSM to go and dance with the senior sergeant's wife. Yeah, it was just great fun. It was great fun. You knew your place, you knew your station, providing you kept it. I didn't always. I stepped out of line quite often, got my knuckles wrapped and got back into line. I wasn't a goody-goody by any manner of means. And it's one thing I learnt in the army: if you're good at your job, they'll stand by you. You can get yourself in all sorts of scrapes, but if you're good at your job, and there's no better setup for training. If they're going to train you to scrape potatoes, you'll learn to scrape them properly. If you're going to learn to fix a tap, you'll be a wireless operator. There's no better training than the armed forces. If you're trained, it's good. Made great friends in the army. My particular mate was my best man at my first wedding, and I was best man at his wedding. He, incidentally, was one of a large family, and I spent a number of weekend passes with his family. And his dad was a police sergeant who was in Bromsgrove, and he was the station sergeant, and he was known as the colonel. And his two brothers were both in the Grenadier Guards. One of them a regular and one national service. And they always made me so welcome. I think it's a shame that there isn't something similar now. It would do a lot of good to a lot of young men.